Hello, and thank you for all coming. I've got a statement here of a member that is a big part of this, but unfortunately he was trimming a tree 25 feet in the air, and when he cut the branch, it knocked out his ladder, and he fell, Greg Stubbe. And Greg has just been a leader on this issue, and there's a reason why he's been a leader on this issue in his district. And he has a statement here, and he's sitting at home recovering, but I wanted to read this statement because he's been a big part of this, okay? House Republicans pledge to protect women's sports. Today we're delivering on that promise. As I've said many times, it's a sad day in America when we have to introduce a bill to say that men will play on men's teams and women will play on women's teams. But we've seen time and time again how the left only favors fairness when it aligns with their woke agenda. My constituent, Emma Wyant of Sarasota, was robbed of her NCAA championship last spring by a biological male, Leah Thomas, in the 500 freestyle. Floridians and Americans across the country were rightly outraged at what has become of women's sports. So today, I'm pleased to have reintroduced legislation that give women and girls a fair playing field in competition sports. It ensures that the school athletes comply with the Title IX recognition of a person's reproductive, biological, and genetics at birth. Then he makes this really important part. Thank you, Speaker McCarthy, for making this issue a priority for our conference. And thank you all who are here today for all you're doing to save women's sports. I want to thank Greg for his work on this, but more importantly, we have some amazing guests, and some have been before. We have been trying to advocate for this, and I think now that the majority has changed, one of the issues out there, and this is not a partisan issue, I will tell you as I go across the country, it's a fairness issue. And it's a frustrating as you hear these stories. And Jen Kiggins, a newly elected member of Congress from Virginia, she's been an athlete. She was in high school. She was a track, cross country. She even coached her daughters in track as well. She served our nation, was a helicopter pilot, served in the state senate in Virginia, was a nurse practitioner. There's nothing she can't do. I'll just put it that way, all right? I've been so amazed by her. But this issue, she introduced this legislation as well in the state level. And what we want to do, I'm going to turn over to Jen for a minute, but we want to hear your stories because that's the power of what we're trying to help here. That's the power of what we're trying to correct. And I think fairness really matters. So let me give you Congresswoman Jen Kiggins.
Thank you so much, Speaker McCarthy, and thanks to all of you for coming today. It's great to be with you to celebrate the National Women and Girls in Sports Day. So Speaker McCarthy said, it was a great part of my life to be able to be a runner and to still continue as an athlete and distance running, and it's really just an outlet for me. So I certainly appreciate what athletics brings for all of us, and to be able to participate in coaching on my daughter's teams as well. But so much benefit from women participating in sports together, right? Such camaraderie, opportunities for scholarship, opportunities to excel and to just be healthy and just promote good mental health, all the good things that sports and athletics bring. So on the state level, it was frustrating when we pushed this issue as a state senator last year, and it promptly died in a Democrat majority. We were trying to prohibit biological men from participating in women's sports in K through 12 arena. So it will be a fight here on the national level as well, but it's one worth having. So just great to be with you guys today, and I'm excited to hear your stories as well. So I think we wanted to hear a little bit more from you all.
What I'd like to do is introduce yourself, tell a little story about it, because I know some of you came last year when we did this for the anniversary, and it was so powerful it never left me. And the thing that was most interesting to me, I knew this was a big problem, but as we sat and talked, it's not in one place, it's every place in America. And we have Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's worked on this issue too. She's with us today in the back there. Will participate. So let's start out.
Yes, so my name is Riley Gaines. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Kentucky, where I was on the swim team. I actually finished my career as a 12-time NCAA All-American. I'm an SEC record holder. I'm one of the fastest 200 butterflyers of all time, which is an accomplishment I'm super proud of. But this past year, my senior year, we were forced to compete against a biological male. A lot of you guys might have heard the name Leah Thomas. So we as female athletes sat on the side of the pool deck watching that first day as Thomas beat out American record holders, Olympians, the most impressive female swimmers in the country to win a national title, when just the year before was ranking in the 400s as the male at best. That next day, the second day of our NCAA championships, Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle, and impossibly enough, it seems, we tied. We went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second, which is pretty rare to do in swimming, and now looking back, I realize it's totally a God thing. But anyways, we go behind the awards podium where they give you these little dinky trophies and you walk out in front of everyone. But we go back there and the official looks at me and says, "Great job, you and Leah tied. We only have one trophy. It's going to go to Leah." So I look at him and I question him and I'm like, okay, I understand you don't necessarily account for ties, but can I ask you, why is this trophy going to Leah? Why are you so adamant? And I could tell he wasn't prepared to be questioned. They hadn't been questioned up until this point, so clearly they hadn't prepared. But he looked at me and said, "Well, Leah has to have the trophy for photo purposes. We will eventually mail you one, but you will go home empty-handed." And so, of course, I knew what was happening was wrong. But it was at this moment that I realized not only were we being forced to compete against biological men, change in a locker room with biological men who, keep in mind, were fully intact with male genitalia. It was at this point I realized that we as female athletes were being sidelined to men and reduced to a photo op, which of course makes a mockery of everything that I've dedicated my life to. And so that's when I took it upon myself to start speaking out. I truthfully was waiting for someone to. I thought surely a coach, surely someone with some sort of political power, someone with some power would stand up for us, but that's not what we were seeing. And so it hit me that if we as female athletes weren't willing to stick up for ourselves, how could we expect someone else to stick up for us? And so that's kind of what I've been doing these past couple months, actually since March of last year. I was supposed to be in dental school this year, but my life has taken a turn, and I've decided to put that off for a little bit because I realized if I don't use my platform that I know I had as a successful athlete and my story and my testimony that I have, it would be a disservice to the future female athletes to come who have no voice and they don't quite know the implications this will have. The present female athletes who are emotionally blackmailed into silence and threatened and intimidated, and of course the past female athletes who fought so hard and relentlessly for Title IX.
Macy, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name's Macy Petty. I'm a Young Women for America ambassador. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to tell you my story. I am an NCAA volleyball player. I am still within the NCAA. And playing in the NCAA for a volleyball scholarship was a dream that I had since as far as I can remember. I was that little first grader who would spend hours outside learning how to overhand serve, you know. And so I was competing my entire life, waking up early, never got to go to prom, never got to do all these normal things because I knew that that was something that was worth sacrificing for, was to be able to represent a school and to be able to pay for my education because of my athletic ability. And so in volleyball, one way, the biggest way to be recruited is at these national club volleyball tournaments. And so one time I went, and it seemed pretty ordinary, but there was a lot of college recruiters there. So I was like, wow, you know, this is my chance. These opportunities don't come every day. And so I was really excited to be able to show off all the work that I had been putting in for months, years, my entire life, honestly. And so I walked up to the court and I looked on the other side of the net, and there was a male on the other side getting ready to compete against me in front of all of these college recruiters. And something really specific about volleyball, my sport specifically, is that the men's net is over 7 inches higher than the female's net, which is such an indicator that these sports reflect our bodies, right? They're separated for a reason. That reason has nothing to do with ideology or identity, but biology and how we're designed and how we're created and how that's reflected in our sports. So we walked into the game, we were warming up, and then we had to play against an athlete who was playing on a net over 7 inches shorter than he should have as a man. And we were embarrassed. We had the ball slammed in our faces in front of all of these college recruiters who were analyzing our skills and thinking about putting us on a team, but just watched us have the ball slammed in our faces by this athlete. So now as an NCAA athlete, there's a lot of fear about speaking up about this issue. But a couple weeks ago, Riley and I got to go to the NCAA conference and hand deliver a petition with thousands of signatures saying that enough is enough and that there needs to be somebody who's going to fight for us. And I told them I shouldn't have to risk my entire life's work and my scholarship and my educational opportunity to tell you that sports should be separated based on sex. Like, it seems so simple, and they should be fighting for me. They should be the ones standing up for us and having our best interest at heart, but they're not. And so that's why I'm so thankful for both of you and everybody in Congress who is willing to fight for us and speak up for female athletes. So thank you very much for this opportunity and for protecting us as female athletes.
You both told your story before, and I have repeated that so many times. It's so powerful when you tell this. And Riley, when you first told your story first time, you said you were going to compete, and there was this name, Leah Thomas, and you said, well, you know everybody who's swimming around this, all the other women. And you said, I never heard of this person before. How are they ranked?
Exactly. It was the middle of my senior season, which I had made it my goal to win a national title. There was no reason why I shouldn't. I was top 8 the year before. I had excelled tremendously, especially over COVID. I had used that time to where most people didn't have a pool. I had a lake. So every day over COVID, I got in a wetsuit and swam in the lake. And so I was miles ahead of where my competitors were. But like you said, in the middle of my season, this swimmer comes out of nowhere, posting the fastest times in the nation from the 100 free, which is, of course, a sprint event, to the mile. So red flag number one is that you have someone, the fastest sprinter is also your fastest miler in the entire country. That's not normal. Just like, running, your 200-meter track star is not going to be your, 5K champion. So red flag number one. Red flag number two was the swimmer was from UPenn, which is not historically a fast swimming school. And red flag number three was this person was a senior. So looking at this, I'm like, why have I never heard of this person before? But it never crossed my mind that they were a male until an article was posted disclosing that Leah Thomas swam 3 years on the men's side at UPenn. It hit me, and I, of course, was shocked, but truthfully, I felt relieved because when you look up Will Thomas, you see how average Will was. Nowhere near the top caliber athlete that I was swimming at. And so I thought the NCAA would blatantly see that and would never put us in this situation, but of course, that's not what we saw.
Margot.
My name is Margot Knorr from North Dakota. I was a 4-time All-American in high jump at NDSU, and what a privilege to be able to speak about this. Sad that we have to, but I'm kind of the old woman on the panel, but I'm so impressed by these young ladies and what they are doing to protect other women coming behind them. And I got involved in this 2 years ago and am now Independent Women Chapter Leader in North Dakota, and we've really committed to fighting for women's sports. We are motivated for our daughters' sake, for what the opportunities that we were given, that we want to make sure that the girls coming behind us have an opportunity as well. And we actually got a bill in place in North Dakota, but it was vetoed by our governor. And so we're working hard again this session in North Dakota to make sure that we get something across his table that is not vetoable so that girls don't have to go through what you girls have gone through. So,
Chloe?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for inviting us all here. I think it's really important that we're all able to share our stories. But my name's Chloe Satterfield. I currently attend Georgia Tech. I used to be a tennis player. I am since retired. But in high school, I was a 4-year varsity athlete, so I competed on the varsity tennis team for all 4 years. And my senior year, I was playing a singles match, and I competed against a student who was a female identifying biological male. And this was my senior year. Those are the last tennis matches that you get to play. Those are really important because those are the last moments that you have with, the girls that you spent all 4 years with. That's your friend group. Those are your best friends. You win together, you lose together. And in high school, tennis is a team sport, so every match that you win counts for your team. But when I walked onto the court, and my opponent walked onto the court at the same time, it was very clear that there were some biological differences, very apparent to the naked eye. They were taller than me, they're a little bit more built than me, and I'm a pretty small person, so it's not that hard. But I had trained with young men my whole life in a private academy, so I knew what it looked like when a man was walking onto the court. So we start warming up, and I start realizing this person's a lot stronger than me. They're faster than me, they have a lot more upper body strength. And a lot of girls who play tennis, they're usually a little bit more petite. So those differences are just immensely obvious when you start hitting. And we get to talking, and I find out that this individual is a freshman, and I was a senior at the time. So I'd been playing tennis since 3rd or 4th grade. Like, I can't even remember a time where I wasn't playing tennis. My mom was a college tennis player, so it was in my family, and I just loved the sport. It was like my favorite thing to do in high school. But as we get going, I'm obviously losing. They're overpowering me. They're stronger than me. They're faster than me. They can run down the ball faster. And I lost. And it was really hard. And I try not to hold on to that anymore. I think we would all say that, we don't hold any hatred in our heart for these people. In fact, I think we show a lot of sympathy for them, that they're struggling with this gender dysphoria. But really, at the end of the day, this is not about hatred or trying to stop them from doing something they love, but protecting our rights as biological women and making sure that we still have the opportunity to pursue our passions. And I'm very lucky that I wasn't in a situation like Macy where I was trying to get a college scholarship. I knew I wasn't going to play tennis anymore, but I also knew that those were my final matches and those were my final points. And to lose like that in an unfair match was really hard, but I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to share my story.
Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate how you speak so empathetically. I think that's a very important part that we sometimes forget to do. So thank you for starting with that as well. But and thank you for not being defeated and deflated when these things happen to you guys. And you guys didn't just sit by the sidelines. All of you, and I'm sure many of your fellow athletes too, got up and are speaking on behalf of all women and future women athletes. So thank you for that. I'm just curious as to the NCAA response when you all presented this letter and you showed up there. What did they say? Okay, did they say anything? What was the reaction and your perception of the reaction?
So we have formed this coalition of groups, which I think it's important to add all across the political spectrum. We had, of course, right-leaning groups who are dedicated to this, but there are some really awesome feminist organizations who recognize the problem this is giving women who have fought so hard for this. And so that was pretty cool, but we together created a petition. And in a matter of days, we had nearly 10,000 signatures from parents, athletes, coaches, medical professionals, just concerned citizens. It was really amazing that many people were able to sign this in just a short amount of time. So we had that, and then we also presented them with a legal demand letter, basically saying that if they don't stop discriminating on the basis of sex, there will be legal repercussions. And so we held a rally outside for nearly 2 hours. We sat there in the freezing cold wind. San Antonio is supposed to be warm, I thought, so none of us were prepared. And we spoke to an audience, to media, and to everyone. And so the NCAA came outside, and we were able to directly hand them the petition, to which we had no response. But I will say, Mark Emmert, who is the president of the NCAA now, he was there, of course, and so, which I want to add also, the reason we did this at this convention is because this is where they announced their 2023 NCAA Woman of the Year, which I was blessed to be nominated for. It's the highest collegiate honor for all female athletes, but it wasn't just women who were nominated for NCAA Woman of the Year, so was Leah Thomas. So that's why we did this here. But Mark Emmert, who's the president of the NCAA now, who allowed this to happen, who came out with a statement after Thomas won a national title saying he unequivocally stood in his decision, and it's based in evolving science, whatever that might mean, basically doubled down his stance. We saw him at the conference, to which he said, "I totally agree with you. I support you. I stand with you." And my jaw on the floor. it just shows the lack of accountability and the lack of leadership that this, and it's bigger than just the NCAA, this country has, all the way from the top of Joe Biden wanting to, and his administration wanting to rewrite Title IX. The lack of accountability is, I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's wild.
Has anybody in the NCAA had you in to interview you about this, or ask you questions, or do some fact-finding on? I mean, you two told a story the last time about when you started swimming. You know, I think you told the story. You started when you were really young. You were getting up early in the morning. I mean, you two have all of you. You dedicated your life to this sport.
Yeah, in college, I mean, I swam 6 hours every single day. You swim 3 hours in the morning, you go to class all day, you go to the weight room, you come back to the pool, you swim 3 more hours, and it's like that for the past 15 years. I mean, I'm 22, so more than 15 years. I started swimming when I was 4. Of course, it wasn't as egregious when I was 4 years old, but it gets there quickly. No one has asked us how we felt. We exist to validate a male's identity. But the Ivy League, Leah Thomas's teammates, actually, when they were concerned about the locker room situation and they sent an email to the Ivy League and the NCAA, their response was, here are some counseling resources you should seek if you feel comfortable seeing male genitalia in your locker room. And then they were referred to the LGBTQ Education Center to educate themselves on the oppression that these athletes are dealing with. So no one within the NCAA is willing to acknowledge us, our feelings, our safety, our privacy. I've really tried. I feel like it's really only happened like the past couple weeks where I get emotional talking about like the locker room scene, because it is just so wild that you can turn around and see a 6'4" biological man pull his pants down watching you undress, and no one is willing to stick up for you. I've done a good job not getting emotional, but I see what all is on the line. I see who fought for this. I am fortunate or hopeful one day that I'll be able to have little daughters, and I do not ever want to have to imagine them in a situation where they're faced with that. Oh, it's just...
So, gosh, with all the things that you've experienced, all of you, and have seen, what advice or what type of recommendations would you give other female women athletes that are experiencing these things at all different levels, at the high school level, at college levels? But what can they do, and what have you found that's effective that actually moves the needle?
Yeah. I think that specifically within the NCAA, like I said, there's so much fear. Like I've worked my entire life for this scholarship. And it really makes me question, like, is it worth it? Like, am I really willing to speak up about it to lose that? I also am a club volleyball coach in my off season. So I look at these 13-year-old girls who would love to be in the position that I am and are willing to give up so much to be in the position that I am. So when I look at those girls and I think about the fact that those roster spots could be taken by men rather than them, makes me sick to my stomach. And it makes me realize that my career is going to end at some point, but girls' sports is something that I would like to see go on forever. I remember I was sitting in a hotel one time for a volleyball tournament, and this older woman came up to me, and she had no idea who I was. She didn't know that this was a fight that I was in or anything like that. I just had the name of my college volleyball t-shirt on. And she said, I am so happy to see you wearing that t-shirt and coming here to play volleyball. She said, when I was growing up, we didn't have girls' sports, but my generation was the one who fought endlessly so that you could see that you could do that, and that you could have this experience that you have today. So that kind of was this eye-opening moment of like, it's worth it. It's not about me. It's about those 13-year-old girls who want to have the same experience. I'm blessed by God to be able to sit here as a college athlete and to be able to have that scholarship. And so it's worth it, to put that on the line and to fight for the next generation, to not have to go through this. Playing against a biological male is not something I would wish upon my worst enemies. So
The one thing I learned the time before, I would read about this in college sports, but in our last briefing, I was shocked by how much this is happening high school, and even down to elementary. We had an individual who was a star runner, and she was from Hawaii. And this incident was happening in elementary school that they were competing. I mean, you were just in high school, so have you heard from North Carolina, have you heard of other incidents lower than the college level as well?
You know, I've Googled it, but in North Dakota we haven't faced this. We're just trying to get ahead of the issue, and seeing what you girls have gone through is what motivates me as a mom as well. I think I do not want my daughters to go through that. And in speaking to a coach, kind of reflecting the fact that no one's standing up, I talked to a coach on the national level and was visiting with him. He had coached me on an event. I was visiting with him about, why are you guys not saying anything? Why are you not speaking up? And I hate to say this, but they were waiting for Aaliyah Thomas to come along. And so in spite of the pain and suffering that you guys had to go through, this is what's going to flip it, is that we see now. But my disappointment as a mom and having 2 children is, why did we have to put women through that? Why would we do that to women? Why would we not stand up in the face of, potential lawsuits, in the face of the media backlash? Why wouldn't we stand up? And hopefully North Dakota can make that difference for girls in our state. And I'm seeing the course change, and what you guys are doing, speaking out and not giving up, is incredible.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that, and I'm sure that it's happening at the lower levels, but the younger the girls get, the more afraid they are to speak up. I mean, even we're in college now, Riley's graduated, and it's still hard to share your story because of the backlash. And even when it happened to me, I was in high school, I was about to go off to college into the real world, and even then it was like, is this even real? Like, is this really happening? And it's sad that we have to wait for it to happen to us and for us to experience that, for us to finally be able to get attention and bring attention to the real issue that it's causing, which is a Title IX violation. And I just think that we need to get ahead of the issue like you were talking about. It's so important to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen to girls. And I love what Macy said too about, there were so many women that came before us that fought for us to have the right to have our own sports, to have our own locker rooms, to have our own bathrooms, for all of these different things that women are blessed to have. And now it's being stripped away in the name of equality, and that's not equality.
It goes against everything that Title IX was created for. Jen?
So I was just wondering how we can help. And the K through 12 issue is the state legislatures getting involved, and we've tried in Virginia, which is a tough state. I mean, it's a very much a purple state. I'm hoping some of the red states are making more progress, maybe, but it's a fight. Continue to use your voice and advocate, because as a state legislator, at least, I listen to that. We all should be listening to you. So show up and speak to those bills and talk in committees. On the federal level, and maybe Speaker McCarthy can chime in as well, what can we do to be helpful to you?
Can I add something really quick? Yeah. So when I first started in this issue, that was back in 2020, and I was testifying in state legislatures. And the first one that I testified in was South Carolina. And I brought this issue, and it wasn't moved forward. They said it wasn't a real issue, right? We're just looking for things to pick at. And the club that I played for was actually in North Carolina. North Carolina said the same thing. It's not a real issue. Then a couple months ago, I'm reading the news, and I see that a girl in North Carolina had severe head and neck injuries from volleyball. I was like, that is so interesting. So I looked at the article, and she was hit in the face. I was like, well, that's interesting. I get hit in the face all the time. Like, that's just part of volleyball. But the ball is relatively soft. Like, that doesn't normally cause that kind of injury. And so I looked further, and the girl was playing against a male. And the male hit the volleyball, hit the girl in the face, severe head and neck injuries. This is not just about educational opportunities, which it is, but it's also a safety concern, right? And so I'm looking at these state legislatures who are refusing, who are blocked by their political ideology, to see that they need to step up and speak for these girls. So they're so blinded by this ideology that we need people like you guys who are willing to speak up for us, who aren't going to let that stand in the way and say that we're going to protect all girls. No matter what state that you are in, you deserve protection, and your voice is heard.
Well, let's give a big round of applause for Miley, Macy, Margot, and Chloe. No, there are a lot of people behind you. We're going to keep fighting for you. So we're going to switch the tables. We're going to have Riley moderate a panel of 3 congresswomen. Correct? Are the votes taking right now? Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we take some questions from the audience from them? I'm biding time.
I can go all day.
All right. Do you have any questions or comments?
I see is that an end cap shirt? I see an end cap shirt. My roommate swam for end cap. Your favorite is? That is also my favorite. Yes. Ah, well, that is so sweet. You know, Katie Ledecky swam at NCAP, I think. That is pretty cool. Yeah, freestyle's my favorite too. Really out of nowhere, my senior year, I got good at butterfly, which my shoulders, you could still tell. So we do a good job hiding that with the hair. But that's really cool. What's your name? Oh, that's a great name. That's awesome.
Questions, comments? Yes. Identify yourself so they know you're a reporter.
Republican lawmakers up here. Have there been any Democratic lawmakers that you've reached out to? Have they been receptive to it? If not, can you call them out by name?
There truthfully hasn't been very many people on the left who are willing to have a conversation. Trust me, I have tried, and that's what I think makes this issue so special. There are very few things in politics that people can agree on, but as parents, mothers and fathers with daughters, no one wants their daughter to miss out on opportunities, and that is irrelevant to where you stand politically. But this past weekend, I was in Virginia testifying, and I was able to have a conversation with Delegate Jeff Bourne afterwards. When he was presenting his argument in opposition of the Fairness in Women's Sports bill, he argued that this is a hateful bill, that if you support this bill, you're transphobic. And this isn't driven by the kids, this is driven by the parents. The kids want to be inclusive towards everyone. He said he was willing to put his daughter in the situation where she was competing against men. And so I wasn't able to converse with him in the setting of the committee room, but afterwards I caught up with him. Of course, he was a lot kinder when it was just us two. But I asked him, you said, you're transphobic if you support this, and you also said this is something that the kids don't feel any type of way of. I said, has it ever occurred to you that the kids don't feel any type of way because they're scared of people like you who will call them transphobic, who will call them hateful for speaking out, and that's why these adults are saying things, not the children? Oh, well, that's not really what I meant, but I appreciate your dialogue. That's what I received. So it's hard to have a conversation with someone, and I genuinely want to converse. I agree with Speaker McCarthy when he said this is not bipartisan. I hate, sports is the one thing that shouldn't be political, ever. Sports are sports. Sports don't care about your identity. They don't care about your feelings. But
there are some non-elected, famous individuals who'd have a very liberal approach on other issues who are very strong,
very much.
Stand with you if you want to
Martina, who's the tennis player, who's a legend, she's been super strong on this issue. There are some athletes who are willing to take a stance. They hate Trump, but they care about this issue. And so I think it's something that can unify us rather than be divisive like so many other things that our society deals with.
Margot, you had something?
Well, Caitlyn Jenner even recognized this. Bruce Jenner, when he was competing at the national level in the Olympics, he recognizes the fairness, and he knows the truth and what it's about, and that's pretty important to recognize that as well.
So let's do this. You voted? We have Congresswoman Lisa McClain, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Chairwoman Virginia Foxx are going to be interviewed by Riley. I think you have a future at this. I really do. I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank you for your strength. I want to thank you for your bravery. Most important, I want to thank you for standing up, not just for yourself, but for the next generation of
Thank
young
you.
ladies.
Thank you so much.
And let's thank Jen Kiggins for all of her work on this. Great job.
Taking Speaker McCarthy's chair. Sorry.
Be easy on us.
Oh. We'll see. We'll see if you're ready. I know. One thing I am proud of is, can't say I lost to a biological male because we tied, so I did not lose.
I just think it's weird that we have no chair right there.
I know. Okay, we good? Okay, well, again, I'm going to reiterate off Speaker McCarthy. Thank you guys. It is so amazing to have a group of strong, influential women, real women, up on this stage. So thank you guys. I've met some of y'all before, so this is exciting for me. I was thinking we just kind of start with, we can kind of do a round robin. Of course, you can introduce yourself. I'm sure everyone here knows you. And explain just why this issue matters to you specifically. What is it that makes you want to fight?
My name is Virginia Fox. I'm from the 5th District of North Carolina. And I can remember when Title IX was passed. I was working at Appalachian State University at the time, and I've asked the staff, I didn't think about it till I came in here, but I would like to know, in 1972, this body was controlled by Democrats. It was controlled by Democrats for 40 years. Democrats fought for years to pass Title IX. Republicans joined them in that because we understood the inherent unfairness of women not having the opportunity to have scholarships and be able to compete in their own sport and to be treated fairly. That's the whole idea behind Title IX. And now to have somebody tell Riley, oh, you're transphobic if you are in favor of this bill, which doesn't make any sense at all, particularly, again, because this was done in a bipartisan way, but again, led by Democrats. But what this is so inherently unfair to women, and what it will do is by allowing biological males, and I think we have to continue to say that because there is a science involved here. And Democrats tell us all the time, follow the science, follow the science. And I think, was it you, Riley, who used the term evolving science? I was stunned when you said that somebody told you that. No, it's not evolving science. It's settled science. So I'm appalled at what is being pushed. I think it's important that women have the same opportunities that men have throughout our culture. I've fought for women's rights all my life. And while I'm not an athlete, I have a granddaughter who was on the track team. She's a thrower, and she's a pretty good thrower. And my grandson was on the track team, and he was a very good thrower. And he was also on the football team. So I think it's important that women and girls compete against girls and women, and that biological men compete against men.
Well, thank you. I also have a Riley. I have a Riley
good
and I
name.
have a Ryan.
Oh.
So this issue is critical to me because one, believe it or not, I am an athlete, or I was an athlete, let's say that. I coached girls' sports, travel baseball or softball, but I am spitting mad. And at some point in time, you have to have some people that actually have some courage to stand up and call out all the hypocrisy. So save it on your labels. Save it on, if I don't agree with you, then you're going to call me a name. You know what people call that? They call it bullying. Well, you know what? Save your labels. Save your labels. And I will share with you, I will fight till I don't have any breath left to make sure that we have we have girls' sports. How long have we fought, and do we have to listen to all the other side on fairness, equality? I get a little excited. Okay, well, where is the fairness and where is the equality? And I'm going to tell you one thing. I give you a ton of credit because I'm going to share with you. As a mom, I have no idea what I would have done if my daughter came home and said, "Mom, I was made to undress in a locker room in front of a man with a penis." Really? You know what I call that? You know what I call that? I call that indecent exposure. So let's just start calling it out on what it is. Let's have a little bit of courage here. And you know what? I'm sure the other side is going to get up and call me names. I don't care. I don't care because I have 2 daughters and I will fight for them. And what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And you know what? We need to stand up because people want to be led, and it is our responsibility. And I will share with you, with Marjorie and Victoria and myself, we will lead. And you can berate us, you can belittle us, you can label us all you want. But you know what that means? That means I'm right. Because if you can't debate me on, what'd you call it, science? Then I must be winning. So I'm doing this for my 2 daughters because I care about them, and I also care about you as well. And let's just call it what it is. Let's follow the science. Now, I'm not opposed to the transgenders. You can be whatever you want to be. This is America. That's the beauty. Don't force me to be something different either.
I can tell you.
We want you to tell us how you feel next time.
My daddy's a big former NFL football player, and when he found out about the locker room scene, he said, "I'm coming down there." I said, "Dad, we already have 1 man in the locker room. We don't need 2." But trust me, I understand.
I mean, you guys are courageous for standing up because I'm sure you guys all get ridiculed, and you want to talk about bullying, and oh my gosh, the labeling. Oh, I mean, please. Just save it. Just save it.
Gosh, Lisa, I got warned to be a little careful about how I talked about this issue, but it's kind of funny. I don't think. No, I'm happy you went there. We do need to go there, and here's why. When we can't be honest about the real issue and we can't use the words and call it exactly what it is, then we can't stop it. And that's why we are where we are today. And I just want to thank all of you for being here and standing up for what you believe in, whether you're an athlete, a former athlete, a mother, or just a woman that cares about protecting girls and women's sports, our privacy, our locker rooms, our rights, Title IX. I want to thank you for being here. My name's Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm from the 14th District of Georgia, and I'm proud to represent Northwest Georgia. And Riley, I'm excited to talk on this issue because it's something I've cared about for a long time. I'm also a former athlete. I grew up playing every sport I could possibly get my parents to sign me up for, ranging from softball to soccer, and spent a lot of time in water sports as well. But as an adult, I competed at the top level in a sport called CrossFit. And it's a very difficult sport. It's a combination of weightlifting, gymnastics, and endurance. I wasn't anywhere near the top 10, but in 2015, I was 47th in the world, and that was a pretty big accomplishment for me. I was also a CrossFit gym owner, so I was a business owner and an athlete. And in 2014, there was a biological male that identified as a woman competing in CrossFit that sued CrossFit because they wanted to be able to compete in the women's division. Well, I found this to be a big problem, and it concerned me for my own sport, because here's the deal. My business owner was a CrossFit Games athlete. He was a man. And I trained with him. I also trained with other male athletes, and I knew how strong they were, and I knew how good they were because I could never beat them. And then in 2017, when I signed up for one of the qualifiers, it wasn't a CrossFit Games qualifier, it was another worldwide competition, I found out that there was a man on the roster that had signed up too in my division. And I was so upset. I couldn't believe this. I was like, why do I have to compete with men? I shouldn't have to. I should enjoy the sport with the other female athletes because I have the right to do that. So I stopped competing in CrossFit. It saddened me to be able to stop the sport that I loved. But I also felt silenced because I was an owner of a CrossFit gym, and I didn't want to offend any of my gym members, and I think that was a problem. But another reason why this issue is such an important issue for me is not for myself, but I'm also a mother, and I have 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. But my middle child, my daughter, she just graduated from the University of North Carolina, Division I athlete, softball player. She was a starting catcher as a Tar Heel. Very proud of her, but like you, Riley, and the other athletes here, she started playing. I signed her up for softball when she was 4 years old, and that kid couldn't put the ball down and begged me every single day to play with her out in the yard. We traveled the country with her, played all over. She won championship after championship. She holds the home run record, and I'm so proud of her. But here's the biggest problem facing college athletes, girls that are competing in the sport they trained for their entire lives, the sports they loved. If you're an athlete on scholarship, you belong to the school. And you're not allowed to speak up. You are silenced because you have to keep your mouth shut. You're controlled over what you're allowed to post on social media, what you're allowed to say. You can't be political because you're not allowed to. You represent the school and you're paid by the school. That's what your scholarship is. And so this puts female athletes in a very difficult position. Not only do you want to be able to play in the sport you love, and you want to be able to compete at the highest level because that's what you work so hard your entire life to be able to do, but you can't say how you feel about men trying to take your place on the playing field, the swimming pool, the court, whatever your sport is. You are silenced because these female athletes are afraid of losing their scholarships. They're afraid of losing their starting position because they went there and called out the woke politics that are destroying women's sports. And that is something that we have got to stop. I'm honored to be a co-sponsor on Congressman Greg Steube's bill that would stop this outrage and end biological men's assault on women's sports and their tactics. And I don't care if it's a mental illness, I don't care what it is, it's straight up evil. And they do not belong in girls' and women's sports. So I echo what my colleagues here on the stage have said. We will fight for you, we will stand up for you, and we will work as hard as possible until we stop this and keep the guys out of the locker rooms, the bathrooms, your hotel rooms when you travel, and competing with you to try to steal your spot. Thank you.
Wow. Well, thank you guys. I could hear your passion just rising as you went on. And of course, Lisa, I heard yours the whole time.
Story got away from me a little bit.
No, I know. But that's tragic about your own story. You have your own experience. That's, of course, really hard. But thank you for bringing up the piece that so many people don't see, is that we are essentially owned as athletes. It puts us in a really hard position. I'm fortunate, 1, that my university supported me. That's an anomaly. And 2, that I just don't care. I'm like, whatever. But you're owned. These schools tell you you won't get into grad school if you speak out. You'll lose your scholarship. You won't get playing time. So thank you for bringing that up. There's a lot of arguments that women should just not compete, everyone not compete. 1, it's extremely hard to organize that. And 2, why should we have to throw that away? But anyways, of course, you brought up the Steube bill that was filed this morning. Would one of you kind of want to go over that and what that entails and how that will protect women's sports?
It's actually a very short bill, but basically what it says is that no school will be able to allow a biological male to compete in a woman's sport and take a woman off of the roster. So there is a caveat there, but it is definitely keeping the biological sexes separate when it comes to sports. So anybody that's receiving federal dollars cannot violate this aspect of Title IX. It will amend Title IX to do that. And as I said, I'd encourage you all to read it. I'm sorry I don't know the number. I should have gotten the number before I came up here, but we'll get it for you in a minute. And I am checking, when is the first vote over?
It's still open right now.
It's over right now. Okay. We don't like to miss votes. so we've got another vote to go to. And so it's a very simple bill, easy for you to read, I think 2 pages long, basically, because it is amending, again, the 1972 bill. And I want to build on something that Marjorie Taylor Greene said. We do have larger issues with the universities in terms of free speech. And Lisa and I are both on the Education and Workforce Committee. And we will be dealing with much broader issues in the university, college and university programs as we go through these 2 years. Free speech will be an issue, loans will be an issue, financing for students. We have a broader issue to deal with, and the role, what does the athlete own in terms of his or her name, his or her image. Those kinds of things are going to be coming up in our committee. And so I am very, very glad in many ways that these things are coming to the fore, because education has been kind of a sleepy issue in the country. And the speaker, I'm not sure if he said that when he was here, has said the 3 things that are most important to him are our debt, education, and China. And so we've never had education be raised to that level before. And so there are many, many issues that we want to deal with in this area. But sports is certainly very high on the list. And I'm so sorry Greg Stubbe couldn't be here. I assume somebody has told you, right?
Yes.
Why he's not here. So I know he's very sad that he couldn't be here, but we're grateful for his leadership on this issue.
Yes, we sure are. I am sad he's not here. I want to meet anyone, like Speaker McCarthy said, regardless of where you are politically, who would be willing to fight for women. So just out of curiosity, I am interested.
Will you let us go vote?
It's still open. The first one is still open.
The first one's still open?
You just scream when they're not, and we can wrap it up.
We'll run.
Just run. I am curious, how are y'all's home districts responding? What is the response as the leaders that you guys are getting from the people that you represent?
In Georgia, we don't want the boys playing in the girls' sports and taking over our teams. That's the great news. The district that I'm from is a big believer that there's only 2 genders, male and female, and you can always trust the science on that one. Because that's proven, and it's hard to believe that's even a debatable issue these days. And again, I echo your sentiment, which I think was so wise to bring up. And I know you're from Georgia Tech and Cartersville, right? Cartersville, Georgia. But you're absolutely right. It's not an issue of judgment or hating people based on their sexuality. Not at all. We respect people's maybe how they choose to identify or their sexuality, but we just don't want biological males taking over girls and women's sports. It's not a hate issue. It's not a problem that how we feel towards the trans community or LGBTQ, and however many letters or pluses you have to add. But it's honestly a fact that they need to respect girls and women's sports. But Georgia is totally supporting girls and women's sports. I'm proud to say that.
Awesome. Good.
You know, I can speak for my district. I'm from Michigan. We're very inclusive. And I think we all should be inclusive. And I believe in diversity. I believe in equity and inclusion and fairness, and put whatever label on it you want. But I would challenge you this. Isn't the most diverse the individual? Why do we have to separate, divide with our labels? Tell me how labels bring people together and closer and more inclusive. I would challenge you, they don't. So to me, I believe this is America. You can do anything you want. You can be anybody that you want. Just don't make me adhere and force and mandate me to believe the same thing you believe. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, we live in America, right? We are the last bastion of hope, the last bastion of freedom. So you can be whoever you want to be. And we embrace that. Just don't mandate that I have to agree with that or disagree with that. Let me be who I want to be too. Why is it right for you, but it's different for me? Seems like a little bit of a double standard, okay? I want to be inclusive. But this division and this idea of men playing in women's sports is very harmful and very exclusive to our young women, because they're tender at that age, they're vulnerable, they're impressionable. Let's protect them a little bit, right? Let's let them mature, both physically and mentally, to be who they want to believe, to be. So I'm going to ask you something. Please, for the sake of my children and all the young girls in my family and around the world, please don't stop fighting. Please don't quit. Because I can tell you, my daughter Ryan, who played softball, she didn't play at the level yours did, Marjorie, but she pays attention. And every young woman and young girl pays attention. And you are leaders for them. And they need someone to follow. Not the small voices, but you have a very large voice. I implore you, please keep fighting for our young women and the innocence of these young children.
Of course. So I know you guys probably have to go, so we can wrap it up with one final thought. What more needs to be done to ensure, I know we passed this, or the Stubbe bill was filed. I know, of course, different states are doing different things to ensure fairness in women's sports. But what can people in the audience do? What can people who aren't female athletes do? How can we help you guys protect us?
Stay on top of the issues, contact your member of Congress, be relentless, organize other people to contact your member of Congress. Letters make a difference. Don't call, send letters. They need to see tangible things from you. Letters work, emails work, and organize people in your home area, educate them. Majority of people pay no attention to what we're doing up here, which is fine in some cases, but we need them to be aware. And there are people who are aware at a very superficial level about what's happening, but they do need to understand a little more in depth what this means to women, how much the scholarships being taken away matters, how much the inability to participate in sports will matter to a large variety, a large number of women and girls. And you can do that. Everybody can do something, and that's what I tell people. Write letters to the editor, organize people, and I'm going to go vote. Go ahead.
Okay. Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I'll echo what Congresswoman Fox just said. Use your voice. Don't ever be silent, because it's when people are silent that's when the trouble happens. And obviously, that's where we are today. I think we need to fight like our grandmothers did and our great-grandmothers before us, right? We need to fight just as hard for feminist issues, just like they fought. They fought to get us to where we are today. We need to fight and make sure that we protect things that are critical to women: our sports, our privacy in our bathrooms, our scholarships on every level. No, biological men should not only be able to be kept out of women's sports, but they should also be kept out of anything that are for women. So I think we need to keep fighting on that level. And then I'll finish up with this, Riley. Be proud of those strong shoulders. Girl, you earned them. And every single young woman, little girl to young woman to us older women, we should be proud of who we are. Oh, okay. Sorry, Lisa. Just me, not you.
I identify as a 13-year-old sometimes.
But we should be proud of every shape, size, our beautiful bodies, our strength, our fitness, and keep doing it as long as you can, because sports are just a lot of fun. So never give them up. Thank you so much, Riley.
In a word, courage.
Yes.
Continue to have the courage. And the second is leadership. Young girls need someone to look up to and follow. Please lead on this, or continue to lead on this issue. There's a small voice that gets heard, and the problem is that your gentleman that you were talking about at the NCAA, he doesn't have any courage. That's why when he's behind closed doors, you get the media out of it. It's like, oh, you're real supportive, but my God, I can't say that in front of everyone because, I might get somebody that says something wrong. Have the courage to have the debate. Call out the hypocrisy. You guys are leading on this, and for the sake of my girls, Riley and Ryan, and for all of the other girls, please don't stop leading on this issue, and thank you for your courage.
Thank you. I know you have to run. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're so sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. I don't know what I'm supposed to do up here all by myself. Maybe I can sing or something.